Brought to you with the compliments of Carter's General Store and Crumbz Bakery.
Welcome to the final episode in the current series of our National Botanical Gardens. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, it's a pleasure to have you along. We ended last week's program with the assurance that
but we have the ability in this generation, at this time, to create something that is amazing for all of us.
The good news, architect and ecologist Diane Clark is back with us again. She will walk us through the initial stages of creating that something that will be amazing for all of us.
The different sections were designed in different ways. We have Ruth Durant-Sobers, who did the lookout points. These are amazing towers that they use the word tower because it's still a tower. You go up a spiral staircase and you get to the top. There'll be a lift capacity on the central part for those who can't climb. But when you get up there, if you got lost in the gardens, you could look out and you could see where you were. It is beautiful. And on the outside, the spiral of it just takes you around the rhythm. The circadian rhythm of life is the way I think of it. She didn't tell me whether she did that or not, but I believe that that would have been a part of it. Ruth also designed for us the regenerative flower section. And that area is an area where you plant according to the ecological steps. So you might have a mango tree in there and it's the whole thing is an edible issue. So you might have your upper story as the mango trees and then the trees that come underneath it. And then those shrubs and plants that fall underneath it until it's one living ecosystem thriving together, moving backwards and forwards from your tubers to your vegetables, everything that's in there. And it should be an interesting component of the gardens. Ruth and Caroline Tomlin both designed on opposite sides of the garden community gardens, which allow people to come in from the community, establish their gardens, do certain things, but they're in specific sections that will be designated as international community gardens are designated, but of course, with our Barbadian twist, everything with a Barbadian twist. We will also have a herbarium that is going to be placed near Crumbz. It will be near the Crumbz entrance to the gardens. And that herbarium is supposed to list, eventually, the aim is for it to list 10,000 different varieties in there that can be examined. It's important because the study of the tissue of a tree tells you what has happened in our history. The bark and tree identification is important, and it's something that I think we have eschewed for too long in Barbados, and we have to get back to it. I noticed that in ancient civilizations, that they know what their trees do, and they know what benefits they have from those trees. We are going to attempt with this garden to give you all the information that is required in the herbarium so that you understand what the plant does, its use. For example, flamboyants are incandescent in the summer and they line the west coast of Barbados. The nightmare about the flamboyant is that they have termites. But if you can get it further enough situated from your house, it draws the termites to it and your house is safe. We want people to be able to understand that rhythm, and this entire garden, everything about it is supposed to be able to teach you something about the earth that we stand on and the hope that we have and the building further forward for the future.
a gentle reminder that all that we require comes from this earth, and we must take the time to use the environmental resources in a harmonious and judicious manner. Diane Clark continues on that journey of creating something that will be amazing for all of us.
So I mentioned Caroline Tomlin, I'll go on to her. She designed the angiosperm garden, which she connects beautifully to the courtyard area. And that's the lung of the botanic garden, but she connects it beautifully back into this area, so everything is interfaced. She also designed a section of the property called Histories. Well, the idea was Ruth Durant-Sobers' Histories page, but the walkway along it, Caroline designed it. And that introduces a cultural aspect. We are a people with an interesting history. And while we have while the majority of us may have been displaced unwillingly, there is still the aspect of the others who came willingly because they had no choice but to come, still endure the same type of hardships that we keep forgetting. And then we have people who have voluntarily come here. We have Asians that now live here amongst us, and they have voluntarily come. We have Arabic people. We're a multiplicity in our small Barbados, and we have so much to be grateful for that we can learn from each other. And we learn that even in our differences, we can respect each other and have dignity for each other. The garden also teaches us that, because that histories page will speak to a lot of those issues that we have. We have the aquatic botanic exhibit, which allows you to feel the rhythm of water of Barbados. It mentions the ancient African word for God the Creator, of Him being the foremost and the most prominent. God was there on the African continent 3,000 odd years ago, from the north in Egypt to the south in Zululand, across to the east and the west in sub-Saharan and Saharan Africa. The symbol existed, and we want to use that symbol because God the Creator was always there. They knew Him as one God. They accepted Him as one God. Within the cultures, they did worship a number of other gods, but there was one God, the Creator, and that symbol was known. We want to incorporate it into our gardens to remember the people who have gone before us and the people who have worked incredibly hard to build this legacy for us. A lot of hard work has gone into Barbados and where it is now. And we can't forget the people who made it across the Atlantic, the ones who didn't have to lighten the load coming across the Atlantic. And they made it here. And by sheer dint of hard work, they have survived. We remember who we were as a continental people and who we are as an island group of people as we celebrate one God, our Creator, one God, unified across the world as one God only, by that symbol that reminds us that God is still the Creator. He is still first and foremost. He is the Lord God. It takes you all the way through, and there are two other ancient African symbols that are implanted into the garden that will also tell you about who you are and the unification as you exit that part, that blister, the unification of who we are as a people. But inside that aquatic exhibit, we have a replica of Pori Spring, as long as we don't tie it too hard into the ground, and it will fly past Dr. Mwanza and Dr. Seeley. It's a replica of Pori Spring, which is one of our few available springs in Barbados. So I thought it was important because a lot of Barbadians do not remember that we were a country that had lots of water sources before. So we have that. It goes on to the Teish, which talks about the history of the movement of our industrialization. And as hard as that was for us in our history, it is a part of who we are that we cannot forget because it has built Barbados. It has kept our lands arable. And we look to the left, to north, to south, and we remember that we've had input. We are able to yield a sugar content and brown sugar that is so good that it is deemed the best brown sugar in the world. But we also had input from other nations. The Israelis came here. They know how to farm in a desert. They taught us some of their stuff with the sugar cane, and our yield is greater. And after this volcanic ashfall, it will be interesting to see how much greater the yield will be next year. So the Teishas remind us in a water feature of who we are. And then we move across, we have a shoreline that tells us it's a beach, that we are still an island with a beach surrounded, and then we move on out. Then we have the amphitheater. The amphitheater has a small amphitheater, hidden secret amphitheater, and it has a large amphitheater area. So if you had maybe 300, 400 people, 500 people, the mini amphitheater would be where you would hold your function. If you had a larger gathering, you would hold it in the main amphitheater. The stage is positioned beautifully so that there is no issue of the sun crossing you. And the performers will look into the crowd and they will be able to feel and draw from the energy of the crowd. Always important when you're setting a stage and a scene. We're looking at an area for VIPs if they should come in to do that type of stuff. We're tying back in bathrooms across the wall into the Codrington area. It's, like I said, it's an interesting project. We have car parks that will be available. We have Andre Kelshaw who did the courtyard, and he understood the ethos of Barbadians, and it was important enough that the welcome courtyard that he has created is a kite. It's a beautiful structure. When it's put down, it's going to be amazing. And there is a river. The tail forms a river of water heading back down towards the east. So our tail rises from the east, and we set the kite and lift it to the sky in the west. I think he has understood where we have come from, who we are, and equally important, where we're going. I think the garden, when it is finished, will be a garden to rival anywhere in the world. We have cultural components. We have a woodland area that allows the person with a dendrological bent to be able to go in and examine a whole slew of trees, those that we find most often in Barbados. The one that we thought that was endemic, that isn't actually, the macaw palm, will also be there. But all of the trees that make up the countryside of Barbados, and a few of the trees that will be brought in for this particular purpose, will be found in the woodland section. Andre did the gramineous and rooftop gardens as well. He is amazing with structures, and we got to use his talents there. He designed the roadway with the bioswale. So we'll be using the bioswale component in conjunction with stormwater drainage plans that try to keep the recharge going for the area, keep the rhythm moving. And then we come down to this area on this other side. As you can see, we were talking about people exercising, and we have children in the background that are exercising, people that are coming for the evening to do their exercise. I think it's wonderful. But there's a detention pond next to what we call the People's Garden. And it's a garden that's going to be designated for every single person in Barbados who doesn't have access to their own garden, but wants to feel that they can come and sit in a garden, who wants to have a wedding in a garden, who wants to sit and just read there, or they want to pot around, they want to have a section of a garden that they actually help to plant or that they help to maintain, so that they feel the connection to the earth. I was telling Mr. McCaskey earlier about an old friend of mine who died at 104. And while he was an amateur gardener, they listed him as an amateur gardener, his work at 104, you can imagine, he's had a lifetime to perfect it, was incredible. And one of the things that he said was that if you put your hand in the soil, if you continue to connect yourself to the earth, you will always be grounded, and God gives you longevity. I've noticed that a lot of our super centenarians, the ones that make it past 100 and end up in those double digits or close to them, they've all touched the ground and made that connection. It is important for us. We have become so technologically imbued. Technology will be all through this area. We will be using solar lights. We will be using microchips and cards and stuff so that you can scan where you are on your phone and you have your entry ticket. We'll be using all of that. But equally important is to remember the earth that sustains us, the ecology that is there. There's the foundational stone on which everything is built. And I think it's a marvelous idea that we have a chance in our lifetime to begin a dream that hopefully future generations will continue to uphold. They will change it. In 100 years, we would look back and we would say, is this what the garden is now? And we would be surprised at how far our youth have taken it, and their youth, as they produce progeny, continue to take it. It's a living work of art. And it's a history that doesn't die with us when we die. It continues. And I think there's something to be said for continuity in a garden, a national botanical garden, and the Barbados National Botanic Garden.
Absolutely, and we are a part of that. Let us take a look at the International Botanical Gardens.
So west of the Waterford Boulevard is another section. We are going to be doing an international garden in that area. Or I should say the government is going to be doing an international garden in that area. That international garden right now has people from Asia that are interested, Morocco, Kenya. I believe that Ghana will be interested in that. And I know personally of a number of Ghanaians that are equally excited by the thought of people who have their lineage in them, and to see a part of their heritage here in Barbados, to know that we also are really a part of them. And that will be divided up depending on the amount of area that they require to do their gardens, but it's the international garden. So it will showcase the gardens and the type of flora that comes from another section of the world in different areas. There will have to be care with what's put there, because obviously we will have drift, but all of that will be planned and taken care of. And in their individual sections, we will get to walk through Asian gardens that a lot of people probably would not normally see. A Moroccan garden, which a lot of people would not normally see, which is very interesting. The colors and the rhythms, the expression of life and who you are will be found in those gardens. The Kenyans, they are so good with their woody tissue. And we hope that as we look towards the east, we can also remember that looking across there has this feeling of the Maasai, you know, that nomadic tribe of people. And perhaps it will inspire us as Barbadians to be healthier in our outlook. We come from a hunter-gatherer type of people. I don't suggest that we go and do it now in this climate, but it's something that we could look to be doing in terms of our health. All of those things, those components will be seen in the International Garden. At the top of the International Garden will be I think it's a master stroke location to put an old person's home there, because they will open up into a garden type feeling, which immediately creates a sense of peace, and it grounds you to who you are. I think it's a good location for it, to be honest. Off the coastline, close enough to medical services, right by a garden, and you can open up and you can see it, you can feel it, the rhythm of it. It will be an interesting location. That's going to also have a bike trail that's linking through it. So Barney Gibbs is doing a bike trail for Barbados. I'm sure you've heard of that. And he is going to be bringing it in, and it's going to come through the bridge. There is a bridge on the Waterford Boulevard section, which is bricked up. And I think that it would behoove you to go and have a look under that bridge and see the areas that remain as the original area, a bricked-in bridge. Amazing suspension for those bricks in there. There's no steel in it, in the older part of it. We have to remember that the old ways can teach us a lot of things, and that the modern must be the things, this is what the bridge teaches me at least, that the modern things of life are equally important, but in the measure that they are found, and not to totally eclipse everything. That's what these gardens together should do for everyone. And everyone in Barbados should be able to be involved in these gardens somewhere, somehow. You can plant a tree maybe. They will be guided by the authorities on that. You can donate to the gardens. I mean, that's always a willing and a good thing to be willing to do, to bring it forward. We can have schools involved, we can have competitions, we have statues, we have areas where people can be highlighted and they can be informed of what's happening at certain points in the garden and why it developed this way, how it developed this way, people that we're highlighting in the gardens. It'll be amazing. Okay, so this is a mangrove grove, which of varying species of mango, Mangifera indica, and then the species there too, that the dendrologist, Nigel Jones, planted at some point in time. He's responsible for a number of the fruit trees that are in here. We call it dunk. It's a ziziphus. And around the car park areas you came in, around the circle, that's a ziziphus that he has decided to maintain. And I would hope that we can keep it. We will have to see how it evolves. But he has planted a number of fruit trees around the property. He has left a number of the trees in certain areas for the time being, which can either be relocated if they need to be or taken out if they should be. But in planning for what was there previously, he took care of the things in the best way possible, which is also a good idea. So we have a number of trees around here. We also have a baobab tree, which is called the tree of life. It's the African tree of life. They go to it, they eat the fruit. We have not been taught how to eat the fruit, but they eat the fruit, and it brings a stasis to their body. That's not medical advice for anybody. It's just a healthy way of eating, and they understand what it is that they're doing. We hope that we will be able to showcase in these gardens some of the techniques that are coming out of Namibia, the new techniques that are coming out of Namibia, and the various components that can be added to so many different parts of life. The sensory garden should give the people who are interested in being the next nose. We don't know if the next nose in the perfume industry will come from our region. It's quite possible. The sensory garden should give you that. It will also allow an autistic person to interface smoothly, because I have found that where there is autism and you put them in a sensory environment, that people begin to come out from where they are, locked down and locked in, and they begin to express themselves. So those are the ideas that kind of went into the whole garden and trying to get it together. But for this particular grove, this is Nigel, one of Nigel's babies out here, and it works well. It's an area where you can shelter when the rain is passing by. It's an area where the children are using it for their stretching exercises. You can use it in your avenues and your rows in the morning. I see people walking up and down to keep themselves separated during this corona time, and you're not interfacing with anybody else's wind. It's an amazing area. We're going to mirror this on the other side of the Great Lawn, and that will then give us a balance to it, because where you have a free-form design, every once in a while you have something that is structured and balanced. This was here. We'll put another grove on the other side. We're also going to keep you see the other grove over there? Can you see that out there? We're keeping that. Those are the jamun berries. That's a jamun grove. And down at the bottom, that line along the road down there, that central line, that's also jamun. Jamun berries are equally important. We are continually taught the importance of temperate fruits, but we are not taught about the importance of the fruit that grow in our region. We are taught that an apple a day will keep the doctor away. No one has taught us that Acidium guava, which is our guava, red guava, is so healthy for us. In the days gone by, when they grew in a plethora along the roads in St. Thomas, people stopped and they picked them. And there were less health issues back then. A lot of those fruit, small fruit, are important, my grandmother used to say. They keep you healthy in a way that we don't understand because they are not studied. But if we would understand the wealth of what we have in our hand, industries would be created. So we could create an industry with the mango leaves, because the young mango leaves can also be used in salads. The various varieties of mango, all we think about is eating the mangoes. But the mango has so much more to offer. Could it be used in a face cream? Could a flower from the sensory garden then also be incorporated into a face cream? Could this be used in some sort of skin lotion? So silver ginkgo, we know, can survive a radiation blast. We know that that can survive it. Is it possible that a mango could also survive it? We need to know all of these things, because then that means that we have a whole industry that we would be able to put into our sunscreens for ourselves and generate here in Barbados. We have different types of grasses available in Barbados, available throughout the rest of the region as well, but every country, by virtue of its location, has something that is its ecological niche. We are a limestone country in an oceanic setting, because Barbados is set in the Atlantic Ocean. What we call our Caribbean Sea, everybody else is calling their Atlantic Ocean, right? So what are the implications for that in terms of the study of the trees and how they develop and all the rest of it? We have a university that's going to be doing some study along the area that we have left fallow for them. That's going to be a university zone. The gully and the area coming up around the north to the old Comrie House there, that whole thing will be left for the university to deal with. And they will be able to study it. We'll be able to study the Barbados lizard, which used to be endemic around here. I don't know how frequently it's seen out here now. We have ducks that come through in the winter season, and we're hoping that they will be able to come through. This quite an interesting set of birds come through here in the migratory period, and it will be nice to see if that continues. We have the pests. They'll always be around, but all of them, if the area is maintained and if we interface with nature properly, serve their place in the ecological niche as well, right? Those things are important.
Of equal importance will be the incorporation of things Barbadian in the gardens.
We want to incorporate a lot of things into the gardens that are Barbadian. We want to have stones from all around Barbados. So we have limestones, and we want technologies that seem to be outdated technologies that are not necessarily well known of in Barbados or around the world. We're using a Gabion technology in one of the gardens, in the People's Garden. And I thought it was important to put it in there so that we would have a recognition. It forms an area that retains you away from a section of the same detention pond to slow down the water. It's important for us to remember how good we are at certain things. We have built a country where people have been told that their skill set was not important, only to find that these technologies are being used around the world, or these rocks and these stones are being studied all around the world. Barbados has so much to offer. So we want to put in the Gabion technology to remind us of our forefathers, remind us of the slippage on the East Coast Road, so that we're careful and we're mindful as we go forward with how we use our water over there, where we build our houses. Development plans are reflected in the concept of a Gabion. The minute you think of a Gabion, you think of, even if you don't know it, you're thinking of a development plan. You're thinking of something for the future, and that is developmental thinking. So we want that to be reflected in the gardens, so we're using Gabions. Our Gabion technology is one of the best in the world. At the time that I first found out it was the best in the world, I remember being shocked, driving along the side of the River Avon and asking my host at the time, could you stop a moment? I need to look at this wall. I see Gabions. I mean, is this where Barbados got the technology from? Only to be told, when I went into Bristol University and made an inquiry, that they took the technology from us. I was shocked. They may have perfected it because it's on the side of a cliff wall, but did we know how important our Gabion technology was? We want to use that. We want to use our boulder wall making ability, which is stellar in Barbados. It really is. You pass these limestone boulders along packed in a boulder wall that is blissful to look at. And you think of it, you think of the effort it took to quarry it. You remember the people who cut the rock before there was machinery to cut the rock. Every time we used to go through those old limestone walls, my father would say, don't forget where you come from. Don't forget that your forefathers cut that rock, one way or another. Whether you know anything about it, they chiseled it and they got it down. But we want to build boulder walls as retention areas, so we remember that we are able to cut in our limestone with such precision and pack walls that when earthquakes pass by, those walls didn't move, right? Those walls didn't come down. That's something to be very proud of, our engineering component, our designers who thought to use that in their designs. All of that is going to be reflected in this garden. When you get to the xerophytic garden, it's a spiral, moving around in a spiral, and it reminds you of the circadian rhythm of life again. It comes back to that. Kevin Talma designed that. That's important for all of us to remember, to know, to be able to grasp and hold on to, right? Jeff was instrumental in putting us all together, bringing us together as a group, making sure that the studies that needed to be done were done to go along with it, with the project. And he indeed has an input in the design of the built component, the hardscape components and stuff like that around for all of us. So as a team, we work together to bring this to fruition. We range in ages, but I think we all have an enthusiasm for the vocation that we've been allowed to work in, because it's given to few people to be able to work where they want to work. And the 6 of us have had that blessing given to us. And I hope that we are able to effectively translate that into something that is a proposal that everyone in Barbados feels comfortable using. Every single person. It's a peaceful space. The children remind us that we have a legacy that we're going to continue. And if they're using this space now, let's hope their children are using this space in the next generation. So the gardens are able to embody a level of tranquility in Barbados. In anywhere that you go in the world, if you stand still for a moment, you feel the peace of an area and you feel it grounded. These gardens in this location are very peaceful. When the range goes off, you do not feel as if it's going to affect you in here. I'm not saying that there will be no crime anywhere, but I am saying that this garden has a tranquility to it. It does not have the feeling of death. There have been other sites that I have stood on in Barbados where it feels the closeness of death. And when you inquire, you find that there was a graveyard maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago. There may be slave remains there, you know, something. This has a feeling of absolute peace. And it translates itself well into the multi-use park that we are going to develop in here, that has indeed begun to develop. Because without much more having been done, we see it being used. We see it being able to host functions that various people will have. We see it as an effective stop for people along the route when they have other things going on. We see it as a place where church groups can also come, where families can come. We see it where multi-levels of generations in a family can sit together So it's not just the nuclear family, but it will be your grandmother, your great-grandmother. It may be your aunt or your great-aunt. That spiral and that spread that can take place in here effectively around the entire property. It is an amazing feeling in this Barbados to be a part of this at this particular moment. In the midst of a pandemic, this garden makes everyone feel the hope of tomorrow. And believe you me, tomorrow will be a better day. Tomorrow will be a better day. And this garden tells us that because the trees are still standing. There's a tree down there, a Ficus citrifolia tree, that could have germinated or been around in the last pandemic of 1918 to 1920. It's still here. It tells us that the continuity of life will go on. This pandemic has been difficult on every one of us. But we are reminded by the trees, by the renewal, by the fact that horrible things will happen and the sun will rise in the east and it will go down in the west and it will continue. That life reminds us to get up. If you're suffering a grief and you come to these gardens, even as they stand now, it's a salve to you. It's a balm of Gilead. And it reminds you that your strength will come again and you will be able to go forward. It reminds you that there is hope for tomorrow. That if there is a love that you lost, love will come again. Nothing is impossible when you stand in these gardens. And I believe that God, our Creator, I'll call him Elohim or Yahweh, he made it so. He made it so. And this garden, this is our tomorrow. In this garden, we're going to discover things that have never been discovered before. That's my honest belief. We will discover chemicals and compounds in nature that will better our lives, better our children's lives, take us away from the toxic substances that we're so accustomed to using to gain something. We will learn. We've learned to plant trees in this garden. So we've learned all the children, all the people that use the garden have seen the programs with the tree planting that's been going on in the garden and then around Barbados. But you come to the garden and you can see it, you can be a part of it, you can look at it, you can see where things have been planted, and you remember that the oxygen is going to come back to you again. And I hope that for everyone who has suffered a debilitating lung injury, that they get a chance to stand in this fresh air and to breathe this and to remember your lungs will work again. The oxygen of these trees will create something good. Their stoma open for us in the night so we get the oxygen in the day and we can use it. I hope that we make this a sanctuary for all and that visitors, nationals, residents, and those that are just itinerant people passing through will make their way into the gardens and that they will be refreshed for having come here because it has something to offer, something esoteric, ephemeral, and just beyond the reaches of your imagination.
Wow, I'm inspired. All for your enjoyment and all for your pleasure. Thank you very much, Diane. And so we conclude the first series of our National Botanical Gardens. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Thanks for staying with us. I look forward to welcoming you here in this, our National Botanical Gardens.
Brought to you with the compliments of Carter's General Store and Crumbz Bakery.